You're probably wondering, who the fuck is this John Travolta looking ass motherfucker trying to tell me where to put my money? Now, I'm no expert. I'm no financial guru. I do have aspirations to work in the field of finance and to maybe be a financial advisor of some sorts one day. But what I do have is, like I said, basically like 5 or 6 years of experience and knowledge on the world of finance, the world of stocks and crypto, and experience with making a lot of money and also losing a lot of money. Both sides of the coin. I've gone through that battle. I'm still going through that battle, but here we are. I'm restarting my journey. 25 years old. I've got no assets, no investments, because all the money that I did make between the years of 2019 and 2024, I made great money. I made great profit. I started out my Robinhood account as soon as I opened it in 2020. It kind of just went straight down because I was following the advice of a friend that did not know what they were doing, did not have good advice, good long-term thinking skills by any means. But once I absorbed that more mature, long-term investor's mindset and really started treating things very seriously, I saw, hey, great success. So if I made all this money, well, why the hell do I need to start over? Well, I took that money out. I took the profit out, and I shouldn't have done that, right? But I did because I wanted to quit my job at the time. I wanted to take this big risk and stay home and basically focus on starting a business and educating myself and learning these different skills. I took 2 years to do that, started that whole journey before I went ahead and quit the job. And then I felt ready to kind of launch things and kind of see what I could do. So I did. I took out all my profits, and starting from a 19-year-old kid from nothing, basically working up my way to 12, 15 grand worth of profit between different stocks and crypto and all the different things I invested in. Gold and Bitcoin primarily made up a majority of that. I got in at a really good time, just kind of lucky, and it allowed me to do that. So enough yapping. I just wanted to give you a quick little background because this is the first video on the channel and this is the opening of this journey. And of course, you might be wondering, who the fuck is this guy that's trying to give me advice and stuff like that. So anyway, with that off the table, basically, here's my Robinhood account. All right, so you guys can see, I'm not working with much here. Here's my all-time chart, right? It's a good chart. It's a healthy chart. And you can see that period in the beginning there, that first little decline, that big dip right there. That's the advice of the friend that I shouldn't have been listening to, doing stock options before I was ready and all those different things. But I was able to basically recover. And this from here all the way up to the top is following the advice that I'm going to be promoting on this channel and teaching you guys on this channel. And I know that sounds like super salesy and weird when people like, oh, this tactic, this strategy, but take away the negative correlation that the recent years have placed upon those words for a minute and just actually think about the fact that no, this is not some get rich quick scheme. This guy's not selling me no course. There's no products that I'm shoving down your throat. No one's paying me. I'm starting a journey. I'm a 25-year-old kid just like you. I've got fucking nothing. I've got nothing. I'm here to start, but I do have knowledge. I do know the timeless, proven theories and strategies, the things that have made guys like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, the reason that those guys are wealthy and their theories and their philosophies and their very mature kind of mindset. That's what I want to portray on this channel. So if you're an absolute beginner and you're at the starting point that I am, you basically have nothing in your account, or you just opened the account, maybe you got a couple bucks in there, whatever it is. You're on Robinhood, you're on maybe Phantom Wallet for crypto, something like that. Those are the two platforms that I'm going to be primarily dealing with and that I like to deal with, right? I deal with all my crypto on Phantom Wallet, and I deal with all my stocks and my gold on Robinhood. Obviously not the physical gold, the paper gold, and we'll get into that in the future. If you're an absolute beginner, right, you need to know, well, I have this money that I want to invest, or I'm going to be making this weekly paycheck and I want to start putting a certain amount of it into investments. How much should I put? Where do I start? How much do I start with? Well, Johnny, lucky for you, we live in 2026, which is basically the future. And we have these things called fractional shares, fractional investing. And that means you can use a platform like Robinhood, no affiliation to Robinhood, it's just what I use. And you can invest in not a share of a company, which sometimes can cost upwards of $400, $500, $600 just for one share of a company, right? A share is basically just your stake in that company, how much you own of that company. It's measured in what they call shares. Back before we had these fancy touchscreen glass phones, you couldn't do something like that. You just had to go to the bank or whatever and actually buy whole shares. You had to be already of some wealth, some status to get to that point. You don't need to do that anymore. You can start with $5, you can start with $10, you can start with $50. You no longer have to purchase and measure your stock portfolio in shares. you can actually measure it in dollars, even if those dollars can't buy a full share. You can buy half a share. You can buy 0.004 of a share. So don't worry about how much you have or how much you make, right? Anyone can do this. So I want you to do two things right now before we move forward. Open up a Robinhood account, set it up, and get your debit card hooked up in there. Do the same thing with Phantom Wallet. Open Phantom Wallet, set it up, write down your crypto key, your private key that Phantom Wallet's gonna give you. That's all those random words. It's like 12 different words. You write that down and don't lose it. That's your key to the safe. That's your code to get in your safe. That is your crypto wallet, your Phantom Wallet. So set those two things up, Robinhood, Phantom Wallet. Now, before I tell you guys which different things to put the money into within those two apps, right? Let's figure out how much of your money we're actually going to be allocating to investments as a whole in general, right? So investments, we have different asset classes. Different assets are what you're investing in. An asset is something you hold, and that item or that asset holds value. It's actually retaining, or it's making your money grow by holding that asset. An asset can be a stock, it can be a crypto coin, it can be gold, it can be a precious metal of any kind, silver, it could be something like oil. It could also be something like real estate, which is one of the best assets you can own. Not your house that you live in and pay a mortgage on and are getting taxed to shit on, but if you open up a rental property or a commercial property of some kind, that's where you actually open up one of the best cash flow assets that exists. And then you even have things like collectibles, right? Like sports cards, sneakers, watches, things like that. Watches are probably on the brink of almost not even being considered a collectible, but an actual financial asset. So ownership of any of these things makes you a holder or an owner of an asset. But because we're just getting started, right, and we want to start with the lowest dollar amount possible, we're going to pick the two asset classes that have the easiest barrier of entry. And that's stocks and crypto, plain and simple. So now that we've established that, when we ask ourselves this question, how much of my money should I invest? We know that we're basically just sticking with those two classes of assets for now, stocks and crypto. So when you see this word, it means stocks and crypto. It can mean other things too, real estate, watches, all the things I just mentioned. But for us right now, this is our starting point. Now I'm going to give you guys the numbers that I'm actually working with, and you can figure out your own numbers for yourself. But let's say you make a certain dollar amount per week. I make about $8.50 per week. Now the ratio that I want you guys to ingrain in yourselves and actually practice, the one that I'm going to be practicing, is the 60-30-10 ratio. You might see other ratios. You might see 75-10, you might see, or 10-15. You might see 70-20-10. Whatever it is, this is more of an aggressive ratio without being too bold, too aggressive, without being stupid. But this is definitely on the more aggressive side because we have 60% that's actually going to be our spending money. 30% is going to be our investing money. That's a pretty high number. And 10% is going to go into savings. So this is what we're going to do with this $8.50 every time it hits our bank account. Every time. And what you can do to further ensure that you're not going to fuck this up is you can have each one in a separate account. So let me draw a little lock there. We got our 3 locks, okay? They look like fucking shopping bags, but just stay with me, okay? Each of these different things are going to be pulled up to different accounts. So you can't fuck up, right? You can't get greedy and pull from the investing money to go ahead and buy yourself a new pair of fucking sneakers. I've done that. And you will too if you don't separate these things. It doesn't have to be separate bank accounts. You could do something like keep your spending money in your checking account. Keep all your investing money in maybe your Apple Pay wallet or your Venmo wallet or some kind of digital wallet until you go ahead and move it into the investment account, right? You can have it direct deposited into that Venmo wallet. Then you could take the 10% savings and obviously throw it in the savings account, right? That way these things are separated. There's some barrier of separation. So it's very simple. It's not complicated. All we're going to do is we're going to follow that like a fucking military regiment. We're not going to deviate from it. Every single week for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 5 years, I'm going to live like this. I'm going to percentage my money out like this every single week. Some weeks I might make a little less. Some weeks I might make more. And regardless, when you calculate these numbers for yourselves, you want to lowball a little bit. So that way you're not feeling like you're being shorted every week. You're not quite making those margins. No, you want to lowball your estimates, lowball all of your mapping out of your budgeting, right? And that way, when you have an extra $50, $100 than you thought you were going to have, You just throw that right into the investment account. You throw that into Bitcoin real quick. You throw that into gold, into the VOO stocks, whatever you want to do. All right, so again, here's my account. That's as much as I got in there. So I'm basically calling this nothing. I got 268 in there right now. And this is where the market is at. Obviously, if you're in tune with the market at all right now, you can know that everything's down right now. Gold and silver just had this crazy crash. Bitcoin's all the way down back to 69,000 from 110K, that big bull run that happened. So shit's going down right now. Everyone's panicking. Everyone's freaking out. Everything is in the red going down. Don't let that scare you. All the noobs, all the pussies, all the scaredy cats are the ones causing this to happen because the big institutions are tricking them. They're tricking them. It's a timeless tale. Moments like these, it's a great thing that I'm starting now. It wasn't necessarily planned that, oh, I'm going to start now because of this. No, it's more like I was just ready to kind of start reinvesting at this time. I had the money to go ahead and reopen this account and get going with it again. And it's a great thing because look at this. Everything's on sale right now. Everything just dropped crazy. So it's just another reason that you got to start this journey with me right now. This is the time where all these fantastic buy and entry points are being created in the entire market, essentially. So we'll have more videos coming up showing you guys how each of these things grow. I'll probably add a few more things to this list, but generally speaking, I feel pretty secure about this list of assets and I don't want it to grow too much. I don't want to go into too many individual stocks. Most of these are ETFs or trust funds, which are basically culminations of multiple stocks, or in the case of gold here, GLD is gold, but I don't actually have the physical gold. It's shares of the gold trust fund. So this is a way you can get your hands on gold and the value of it and the security blanket that is gold without actually having to spend the money on a full ounce of gold or 10 ounces of gold, whatever it is, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I got a little bit of XRP, not much, just kind of got started with that, but it's a great price, great time to buy XRP. So that's my crypto on here and all my other cryptos on Phantom Wallet because Phantom Wallet doesn't have XRP. But in terms of crypto, I've got Bitcoin, I've got Solana, I've got XRP, and I've got Ethereum. Bitcoin should get like 80% of whatever you put into crypto should go to Bitcoin. The other 20%, you divvy up amongst the other three. Now we move down to stocks and where we're dealing with primarily Robinhood. Gold, VYM, is the Vanguard High Dividend Yield. Let's click on that real quick. I'm going to show you guys some of the benefits of owning this. This is one of the first things you want to get your hands on. Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF. This is a culmination of different companies in one fund, in one stock, that have all really high dividend yields. And what does that mean? High dividends. Dividends is just another way of saying passive income, right? So you're investing in the stocks because you want to have a passive income. You want to get growth from the stocks, right? But there's a difference between growth and passive income. Any stock or crypto or asset you invest in, as it becomes more valuable and worth more money over time, on average an 8 to 10% per year on average with the stock market, that's just considered growth, right? Now, your income or your profit might grow as a result of that growth of the stock portfolio, but you're not necessarily receiving a monthly check in the mail. Your portfolio is just getting more valuable. But when you own stocks that pay out dividends, certain companies decide, hey, we're going to take this leftover money and pay it out in dividends to the shareholders. It's just something that they do. And we'll break that down more in depth in a different video when we talk about dividends. But for now, all you need to know is when you invest in the high dividend yield, the VYM ETF, not only is your value of your position going to grow along with this chart, you can see a very steady rate over the entire time it's existed, but you're also going to get a 30-day yield. You're going to get paid a monthly passive check. You can see I'm only making $2.3 a month, which is fucking wipe your ass, but it's because I only got fucking 50 bucks in here, dude. All right, we're just getting started. Hold your horses, fam. All right. So you can imagine, and I've done the math, as you allow this to compound over time, once you have $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 in here after 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, after about 7 to 10 years, once you've been investing in the VYM for that amount of time, you're basically at the point where you're making an entire full-time job paycheck every week for doing absolutely nothing. So you're gonna get paid 3, 4, 5 grand a week just from owning this. Plus, you actually make the money from the growth as well. So that's what a high dividend yield is. That's why it's one of the first things that you should buy. This is what wealthy people own, high dividend assets. That's a huge portion of any billionaire stock portfolio. So moving on, we talked about gold, VYM, VOO is the next biggest thing, probably the biggest thing you should own. The first stock you should buy besides VYM is VOO. And this is essentially the top 500 stocks, companies in the stock market. This is essentially giving yourself exposure to the entire stock market as a whole. There's also another one called SPY, S-P-Y, the S&P 500. VOO, SPY, same thing. Choose whichever one you think sounds cooler. And again, you can see I have around $50 in here, same as VYM. So this and VYM, I give the same amount of attention. They're my big two that get most of the attention here on Robinhood, the most funds. And I allocate most of my 30% of that investing money goes into these two, most of it. All right, and then it gets preferential from here. You decide you can just do those three things, VOO, VYM, and GLD, and that's a super conservative way to go about it. And you'll make out better than you would with a savings account. Your wealth will actually grow, which a savings account doesn't allow you to do thanks to inflation. But you could be a little bit more niche, a little bit more selective, and try to use your big thinking cap, your big thinking skills to go ahead and pick assets that you believe in, that you've studied, that you've learned about, that you actually understand and comprehend and think have a bright future. Now, silver here doesn't necessarily fall into that category because it's just kind of like gold. It's a commodity, right? It's a precious metal. It's something that will always have value. And worst case scenario, when we go into zombie apocalypse mode and all of the paper dollars don't mean anything anymore, well, silver and gold and precious metals in some kind of dystopian world still would. So that's why you see in times when people are uncertain about the dollar, they have been for the entirety of Biden and Trump's presidency, right? You see gold doing extremely well. That's why everyone's been hyping up gold the last couple of years, because look what it's been doing the last couple of years. It's been raising at this astronomical kind of exponential rate here. Whereas before, it was just kind of seen as this steady storage of value, storage of your money without having to worry about inflation. But now, it's suddenly become this major volatile growth asset. Again, topics for another video, but we just saw, it doesn't look like it. That little pullback is actually quite major. That's like 30% pullback in one day. Mind you, this is the all-time chart. So when we zoom in a little bit to look at the past 3 months, you can see how big that dump off really was over the past couple days. And again, gold, you can see I've got a lot in there. I've got $100 in there. I believe in gold. I'm gonna get physical gold as soon as I can. And that's going to be most of your gold. It should be actual physical gold that you hold on to and can touch and taste. But like I said, I'm just getting started. I'm working with basically my last 2 paychecks here. And this is what we're doing. What's that? That's Quantum. It's an ETF that deals with basically all the companies dealing with quantum computing and creating quantum chips. I know a lot about quantum computers. They fascinate me. I've studied them. I've learned a lot about them. And I really believe in that future and that technology. And I think it's coming. Right? So that's why I'm investing in this. Now, do I invest all my money in this? No, because it's speculative. It's not something like gold or VOO, the entirety of the stock market, that have been tested over an 100-year time span, and basically since the dawn of human time have actually held value and grown in value, right? We don't know that about quantum computers yet. It's speculative. So that's why it's not something that you put the entire of that 30% into, right? Out of that 30% of your investing money, you maybe take 3 to 5% of that and you put it in the speculative stuff like quantum. It's something that I'm gonna have a pretty decent, maybe 5 to 10% of that money is gonna go into QQQ, because QQQ is basically a NASDAQ, essentially, top 100 companies that are non-financial. So this primarily deals with tech companies, consumer resources, and things like Nike or Amazon, stuff like that. You can see it's mostly 50% technology, communication services, consumer defensive, consumer cyclical, healthcare. So all these different things are part of the QQQ Invesco. And I just think it's a great way of trying to outpace the stock market. In some years, you're going to see much greater returns from this than you might from the S&P 500. And you also might see years where it tanks a lot harder than the stock market might, or you lose more than the stock market might. And that all these different things are why you need to have multiple assets. You don't just invest in one. You need to have multiple assets, multiple different stocks, and not just stocks. I have all these different things, and the last one we didn't talk about yet is FXI, which is basically just the Chinese stock market, because I think that that's going to do really well also. So these are the things that I have invested in. Like I said, it's not much, but that's how little you can start with. I have this little in here total, and that 270 is dispersed amongst all these different things, right? So as the account grows, as you guys watch my account grow, you're going to see how my chart does and how the profit margins do. You can see all time I have a pretty good number. All time I have a pretty good number, and I had to pull a lot of that money out. But you can see my chart still maintains that, and it's just been flat because I pulled that money out. And now we have the chance to get it going again. So you'll see that happen. I feel like I've been yapping too much. We're going to wrap things up here. And I just want you guys to understand that the things that I have on this list are not just randomly selected. No, these are the top most recommended things that you get into as a beginner. And it's not just because you're a beginner. This is what the experts are holding too. They're just holding a lot more of it. And you can see it's not some long list of 50 different fucking things. It can be, but at that point, you shouldn't be doing that unless you're some kind of professional trader or investor, because there's no way you're educated enough on all 50 of those companies or all 50 of those different trust funds to even really know what they are, right? So don't invest in something unless you understand it. I understand what all these things are and I believe in them. And that's why I have a holding of them, and I'm going to grow my holding of these things. So stay tuned, stick around for the journey, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hype up the video, do all that good shit. Get me going here. It's a new channel and I'm trying to really stick with it and make this something cool for you guys. So stick with the journey and let's do it together. Let's invest together, let's grow, and let's become wealthy.